He used to think love could survive anything. Mistakes. Time. Even honesty. But that night proved him wrong. He never meant to hurt her. They were just talking, sharing memories over dinner like they always did. She had made his favorite, candlelight flickering against her tired eyes. She asked about his day, and somewhere between his third glass of wine and her second long silence, he said something he couldn't take back. "I'll always care about my ex," he said, half distracted. Not in a romantic way, just emotionally, you know? She didn't respond. Just looked at him, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. He kept talking, trying to explain, not realizing she had already stopped listening. Not realizing that the air had shifted. That something inside her had cracked open quietly. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She simply stood up, walked away from the table, and disappeared into the bedroom. He sat there, confused but not alarmed, still unaware of what had just happened. It wasn't the first time they'd disagreed. It wouldn't be the last. Or so he thought. The next morning, she was gone. At first, he thought she had gone for a walk. Maybe needed space. Maybe went to her sister's for the day. But then he saw her side of the closet empty. Her books, her photo frames, her coffee mug, gone. The bed was made perfectly. Too perfectly. As if it had never been touched. The bathroom cabinet stood half empty. Even her toothbrush was missing. His heart dropped. He called her phone. No answer. He texted. Nothing. He called again. 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 Voicemail. Cold, silent, blank. Hours passed. Day turned to night. Panic turned to denial. Denial turned into something heavier, something permanent. His wife had left him. And all she took was her silence. 3 days later, a small package arrived at his door. No return address. Inside was a velvet box. Their wedding rings, hers and his, neatly tucked together. His, which she had worn on a chain since the day they married, was now back in his hands. The chain was snapped. There was no note. His chest tightened. He kept reading her last text over and over again. Dinner tonight. That was it. Just hours before she left, she had been looking forward to seeing him. And then she was gone. He retraced every moment of that dinner. Every word. And there it was, his mistake, bare and ugly. "I'll always care about my ex." Why did he say that? What was he even trying to say? That old relationship meant nothing compared to what he had with her. But in that moment, he had chosen the wrong memory. The wrong words. And the wrong time to speak them. He searched everywhere. Her office said she had resigned. Her sister didn't know where she was. Or pretended not to. Her social media accounts were deleted. She had vanished, as if she had never existed. The only traces left behind were a few fading photos and the emptiness in their apartment. For the first time, he noticed how much she had done. How she had filled the space with warmth, love, and patience. The coffee table she insisted they build together. The small cactus she named Leo, because it was prickly like him. The bookshelf organized by color. The fridge magnets from trips he barely remembered but she never forgot. Now everything felt wrong. The couch was too big. The kitchen too cold. Even the sun seemed to avoid their windows. He sat alone night after night, trying to understand why she didn't fight. Why she didn't scream or break something or ask for space. But then he remembered something she had said long ago. "When I stop talking, it means I've already left." He had ignored that warning. Laughed it off back then. But now her silence felt like a wall too high to climb. He called her sister again, begged this time. All he got was a simple response: "She doesn't want to be found." The words hit like a punch. She didn't want to be found. Not even for closure. Not even to tell him what she felt. Because maybe, she had told him enough. In her quiet. In her leaving. In the way she never looked back. He tried to write her a letter. He started it a dozen times. "I'm sorry. I miss you. Please come back." But nothing sounded right. Everything felt too small for the weight of what he had done. He started talking to her photos, whispering apologies into empty rooms. He avoided the mirror. Couldn't stand the man staring back. Friends told him to move on. It was just a misunderstanding. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. It was years of her feeling second. Of her trying harder. of her staying even when it hurt. And that one sentence was just the final push. He remembered the first time they met, how she laughed like no one was watching. How she believed in forever. How she told him she didn't need grand gestures, just truth. But when she asked for it, he gave her truth about someone who didn't matter anymore. And in doing so, he made her feel like she didn't matter now. Weeks turned into months. Still no sign of her. Still no closure. Just a ring and an empty apartment. And the slow realization that loving someone isn't enough when your words betray your heart. He whispered her name every night before sleeping, half hoping she could hear him wherever she was. Sometimes he dreamed of her, smiling, soft, still reachable. But every time he reached out in those dreams, she faded. He learned to live with the silence. But he never stopped asking one question, over and over again. Where's my wife? Because the moment she walked out, he stopped being a husband. And he wasn't sure he ever would be again. He sat by the window every morning, watching the world go by, hoping something would change. But nothing did. Her shoes were still missing from the rack. Her perfume no longer lingered in the hallway. Her toothbrush never returned to its place. Days began to feel like background noise, just time passing, just silence deepening. And guilt growing. It started with small realizations. How often he had dismissed her feelings. How quick he was to brush off her questions about his past. How easily he had forgotten to say thank you, or you matter, or even I see you. He had spent so long assuming she would always be there that he forgot what it meant to deserve someone's presence. He thought about his ex. Not because he missed her, but because she had become the accidental reason everything fell apart. He reached out, not to rekindle anything, but to understand what had made him hold on to that memory for so long. Maybe if he saw it clearly, he could let it go properly this time. They met at a coffee shop. She looked older, more tired, less dangerous than the ghost he'd carried inside his mind. They talked. Small things. Her job. His failed marriage. The conversation was awkward, cold, and ended quickly. As he walked away, he realized something important. He didn't love her. He probably never did. He had only loved the idea of her. The idea of something unfinished. Something that made him feel like he'd lost before he could win. But the woman he had married, she was real. Present. Giving. And he had failed her chasing a shadow. He tried explaining this to his best friend. They sat on the rooftop of their apartment building, old beers in hand, cold wind around them. You messed up, his friend said bluntly. I know. Bro, you had filet mignon, and you tripped over expired canned soup. He laughed. Just once. A dry, painful laugh that didn't reach his eyes. She won't even return my calls. Can you blame her? No. He couldn't. He started looking through old photos. Trips they took. Dinners at home. Her smile in the rain. Her handwritten notes on the fridge. Don't forget to breathe. Call your mom. Dinner at 7. Bring your heart. He remembered one night she cried in the kitchen. He had forgotten her birthday. Not completely, he had said happy birthday in the morning, but there was no gift, no dinner, no effort. She had smiled and said it was okay. That she was just happy to be with him. But she wasn't. He began to understand that she had been quietly hurting for a long time. And he had been too distracted to notice. In a moment of desperation, he visited her sister again. Knocked on the door with shaking hands. She opened it, arms crossed. I'm not here to beg, he said. I need to know if she's okay. She's okay, her sister said flatly. Is she with someone? Her eyes narrowed. That's none of your business. I never meant to hurt her. You didn't mean to. But you did. Over and over. And she kept forgiving you until she couldn't anymore. She started to close the door, but stopped. You know, she used to write about you. In a journal. Pages and pages. You were her home, once. That word broke him. Home. He wasn't her home anymore. Just a chapter she had closed. Back at his apartment, he searched through drawers, hoping, praying, for something she might have left behind. And then he found it. Tucked behind a stack of old bills. A small, leather-bound journal. It was hers. He opened it slowly, almost afraid. The first page was dated 2 years ago. Sometimes I feel like I'm in love alone. Like I'm building something and he's just visiting. I know he loves me. I think. But I also think part of him is somewhere else. The next page. Today he mentioned his ex again. I smiled. But inside, I felt like glass. Maybe I'm selfish. Maybe I want all of him and he's only capable of giving some. And another. I'm tired. Tired of being the one who stays soft while he forgets I need care too. But I love him. I love him so much it hurts. The entries went on. Some full of love, others full of silence. And then, one near the end. Tonight, he said he still cares about her. My heart didn't break, it just finally stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. He closed the journal and sat on the floor, heart aching. How had he missed this? How had he lived beside her, touched her, shared a bed with her, and never truly seen her? He started writing. Letters. Apologies. Confessions. Not to send, but just to speak. To heal. To understand. But none of them felt like enough. He realized he didn't want to find her just to fix things. He wanted to tell her that she was never second. That it was his own emotional confusion, not a lack of love, that had made him speak those words. He wanted to say she was the only one who ever really knew him, and the only one he wanted to know better. But she was gone. And the longer she stayed away, the more he began to believe she might never come back. Still, every night before he went to sleep, he whispered the same thing into the empty air. I love you. I see you now. I see everything. He wasn't sure if it would ever reach her. But he wasn't ready to stop saying it. There's a strange ache in not knowing where someone you love sleeps at night. Weeks had turned into months. The seasons changed, but her silence didn't. The city moved on. The world didn't stop because one man lost his wife. But inside him, everything was stuck. Like a song that never resolved. Like a question left unanswered. He tried moving forward, or at least pretending to. Went back to work. Ate regularly. Met friends. Smiled when required. But inside, everything was dim. He kept hearing her laugh in places she'd never been. He imagined her voice in passing conversations. Her memory was everywhere. And nowhere. One afternoon, while walking home, he saw someone with her exact posture, shoulders slightly hunched, head tilted when listening. His heart jumped. He followed her, breath caught in his throat. But when she turned, it wasn't her. Just a stranger. Just his grief playing tricks. He needed answers. Not hope. Hope was a liar now. He started checking records. Old emails. Account logins they had once shared. She had closed most of them. Her bank account was emptied a week after she left. Her name didn't appear in hospital databases. No tickets under her passport ID. It was like she had wiped herself from the map. He considered hiring a private investigator. But even that felt wrong, chasing someone who clearly didn't want to be chased. Still, he needed closure. So, he went back to the beginning. To the place where they first met. A small bookstore by the river, filled with second-hand novels and the smell of dust and cinnamon. He hadn't been there in years. The owner, an old woman with sharp eyes and kind hands, remembered him instantly. She used to wait for you by the poetry shelf, she said. Every Friday. You were always late. He laughed softly. I still am. They talked. The woman hadn't seen her in months either. But she handed him a small envelope. She left this. Said you might come one day. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper, scribbled in her familiar handwriting. If you're reading this, it means you're finally looking in the right place. I don't hate you. I never did. But I had to leave to remember who I was before I became invisible. I waited for you to see me. But you were too busy carrying the past to hold the present. I hope you find peace. I'm trying to. No address. No number. Just her words. Honest. Soft. Unforgiving. He sat there for a long time, letting her message sink in. Invisible. That word clung to him. He had loved her, yes. But love without presence isn't love, it's convenience. And he had taken her presence for granted, assuming it would last just because he wanted it to. He thought about the woman he married, how she always noticed small things. A scratch on his hand. A hesitation in his voice. A storm behind his smile. And he? He had missed the biggest sign of all, her fading light. After that day, something shifted in him. Not peace. Not healing. But clarity. He began volunteering. Not to distract himself, but to feel again. He joined a book reading group, started journaling, even began therapy. For once, not to fix the past, but to understand how he had broken the present. His therapist asked, if she came back tomorrow, what would you say to her, not to win her back, but just to honor her? He thought about it. Long and hard. Then finally said, I'd tell her I see her now. That I was wrong, not just once, but many times. That loving her was the most effortless part of my life. But keeping her required effort I didn't make. Healing was slow. Messy. Some days he still broke down. Some nights he dreamed of her so vividly he woke up searching for her pillow. But now, he allowed himself to feel it all. One day, he found a small photo wedged between pages of an old book. It was from their second anniversary. She was mid-laugh, cake on her nose, her eyes shining with mischief and hope. He smiled and framed it. Not as a reminder of what he lost, but what he had once been lucky enough to hold. He stopped asking, where is she? He started asking, what would she want for me now? Still, part of him hoped. Quietly. Without desperation. Just, softly. That maybe, someday, she might look back. That maybe, if she found peace, she might reach out, not to fix things, but to say hello. Until then, he lived better. Not for her. For himself. But through the lessons she left behind. Then came the unexpected. One morning, months later, he received an email. No subject. No name. Just 3 words. You finally saw. His breath caught. It was her. No doubt. No promises. No questions. Just a message. A beginning, or maybe an end. But for the first time, both felt okay. He read the email 100 times. 3 simple words, you finally saw. No greeting. No name. But it didn't matter. His chest tightened with something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope that didn't hurt. He didn't reply right away. He wanted to. God, he wanted to. But he was afraid. Afraid of saying the wrong thing again. Afraid that one more misstep would turn her silence permanent. So, he waited. Thought. Breathed. Then he wrote back. I did. I see it all now. Not just what I lost, but what I failed to protect. I won't ask for anything. Just, thank you. For still believing I could change. He hit send. And then, silence again. But this time, it felt different. Not like rejection. More like, space. Room for something new to take shape. A pause, not a goodbye. Days passed. Then a week. No reply. He tried not to obsess, but it was hard. Every notification made his pulse spike. Every silence stretched longer than it should have. What if she comes back? He asked his therapist one evening. The answer came gently, what if she doesn't? He nodded. Fair. True. Still painful. He had built a life around her once. Now, he was trying to build one that could survive with or without her. He'd grown. Not just in reflection, but in action. He'd become a better man, not out of guilt, but out of respect, for her, and for himself. And yet, the possibility of her return lingered in his mind like a fragile dream. Would they even fit anymore? Would she still laugh at his dumb jokes? Would she still enjoy late-night kitchen dancing or rainy morning coffees in silence? Or had too much broken between them to ever feel familiar again? He got his answer sooner than he expected. A week later, he found her. Not in a movie-like coincidence. Not by chasing her down. She walked into the same bookstore where they first met. He was sitting by the window, flipping through a novel he didn't even want to read. The bell chimed. He looked up. And there she was. Hair longer. Eyes softer. Older, somehow, but so heartbreakingly familiar. Like she belonged to his memory and yet stood fully alive in front of him. She froze when she saw him. He stood slowly. Didn't speak. Didn't rush. I wasn't expecting you here, she said, voice low. Neither was I, he answered. But I guess life has a weird way of circling back. She looked at the poetry shelf. I used to wait for you there. I know, he said. I was always late. There was a pause. Not awkward. Just thick with things left unsaid. I got your reply, she finally said. It felt honest. It was. For once. She nodded. I wasn't sure I wanted to write you. But I needed you to know. I saw you trying. Even when I left. I watched. From a distance. That explains the email, he smiled faintly. You finally saw. I saw a man learning how to unlearn his mistakes, she said. That's rare. He swallowed. I never stopped loving you. But I understand now that love isn't enough. It needs presence. And effort. And humility. She smiled faintly. You always were good with words. Just not always at the right time. Too little too late. I don't know yet, she whispered. This isn't a movie. I didn't come back to be rescued. He nodded. I didn't stay to be forgiven. She looked around. Do you want to walk? He didn't answer with words. Just walked beside her. The river was quiet. Trees rustled with a breeze that carried more memories than sound. I found your journal, he said. I know. It hurt. It was supposed to, she said gently. I was bleeding. That was my bandage. He didn't argue. He had no right to. I had to leave, she continued. I was disappearing. And I didn't want to resent you for it. So I left before the love turned bitter. I understand now, he said. I believe you. They sat on a bench overlooking the water. For a while, neither spoke. But the silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was healing. I'm not here to pick up where we left off, she said softly. That version of us doesn't exist anymore. I know. But maybe, she added, glancing sideways, we could discover a new version. Slowly. Carefully. He didn't answer right away. His heart was thudding in his chest. You don't owe me another chance, he finally said. But if you're willing to let me earn one, I won't waste it. She looked at him. Not through him. Not past him. At him. For the first time in what felt like forever. I'm not ready for everything, she said. But maybe I'm ready for coffee. He smiled. Then let's start with coffee. They sat across from each other in the corner of the cafe, 2 mugs between them, steam rising like the weight of their past, fading, but still felt. This time, there was no awkwardness. No rush to fill the silence. Just careful sips, glances, and the quiet rhythm of 2 people trying to relearn how to exist together. He wasn't sure what to say. So he didn't speak first. She did. You know what scared me the most, she said softly, stirring her coffee with the back of her spoon. That I could disappear from your life and you'd still keep living exactly the same. He looked up, chest tightening. I did keep living. But nothing stayed the same. She nodded, eyes on her cup. I've changed too. I can see that. She looked up. Can you? He nodded. You feel lighter. Like you stopped carrying me and started carrying yourself again. A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. I stopped trying to fix what didn't want to be fixed. That helped. He took a breath. And now? I'm not here to fix you, she said firmly. Not like before. I'm here because I want to see who you are now. No assumptions. No old scripts. He leaned forward slightly. Then I want to do the same. No more guessing what you're thinking. No more brushing off the small things like they're unimportant. Even the quiet hurts mattered, she whispered. The times you forgot to ask how my day was. Or assumed I'd just get over it because I always did. I see that now, he said. I made love into something convenient. Something I thought was secure. I never imagined I was slowly losing you while thinking I had you. Her eyes softened. It wasn't just one moment that made me leave. It was 1,000 little ones where I felt alone in a room you were standing in. That sentence stayed with him. He reached into his pocket and placed a folded napkin on the table. Handwritten words filled it, scribbled during the weeks she was gone. You were never too much. I was just too little. Your silence wasn't loud, I was just never listening. I wanted you to feel safe, but I made you feel second. If I could go back, I'd spend less time explaining myself and more time understanding you. She picked it up, reading quietly. Her fingers trembled, just slightly. You wrote this. He nodded. Wrote it when I didn't think I'd ever see you again. Wrote it instead of making excuses. Instead of blaming timing or my past. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then she folded the napkin carefully and slid it into her purse. I'm not promising anything, she said. I'm not asking you to. But I'm here, she said. And that's something, right? He smiled. It's everything. They left the cafe and walked without a destination. He didn't try to hold her hand. She didn't ask him where this was going. They just existed. Together. Step by step. Over the next few weeks, things remained uncertain, but real. Some days, she'd meet him for coffee. Other days, she wouldn't reply to his messages until the next morning. He didn't push. He let her set the pace. Sometimes she'd talk about her new job, a book she read, a podcast she liked. Other times she'd fall quiet, and he'd learn to sit with that too. He didn't try to impress her. He just showed up. She began to notice. The way he asked questions now, really listened. The way he didn't interrupt her stories. How he no longer brought up his past just to prove a point or escape a conversation. One night, they sat by the river again. I used to think I had to shrink myself to keep you, she said. Like loving you meant disappearing just a little. I used to think being vulnerable meant being weak, he replied. But the strongest thing I've ever done is admit I was wrong. She looked up at the stars. We're not who we were. No, he agreed. We better. But only if we keep choosing to be. A soft wind blew between them. She reached over and touched his hand. I don't know if we'll last, she said honestly. But for the first time, I want to find out without losing myself again. He turned to her, eyes steady. Then let's write a new story. One where we don't assume, don't expect, don't guess. Just ask. And listen. She nodded. It was fragile. It was slow. But it was real. Not a second chance to redo the past. A first chance to do the future right. Love, this time, felt different. It was quieter, slower, and strangely unfamiliar. But it was also deeper. Honest. Free from the weight of old patterns, from expectations rooted in assumption. They weren't trying to be who they were. They were becoming something new. Together. He didn't text her all day and expect a reply within minutes. She didn't hide her feelings behind silence or politeness. They spoke more clearly now, even when the words were uncomfortable. One evening, while walking her home, she turned to him and said, I don't want flowers every Friday. I don't want grand gestures or constant apologies. He blinked. Then what do you want? Consistency, she said. Even if it's boring. Even if we're tired. Just, be there. He nodded, slowly. I can do that. It was strange how love could be built in the ordinary. In the act of making tea for her without being asked. In remembering the name of the friend she was worried about. In not flinching when she cried for no clear reason. They didn't call each other boyfriend or wife again, not yet. Labels didn't matter right now. Understanding did. There were still hard days. Like when she flinched during a disagreement, expecting him to dismiss her feelings like before. Or when he instinctively retreated into silence, assuming she didn't want to hear his side. But this time, they caught themselves. I'm not used to being heard, she whispered after one argument, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm not used to listening, he said quietly, reaching for her hand. But I want to. And she believed him. Not because of his words, but because of the change in his eyes when she spoke. He didn't look away anymore. She visited his apartment again after almost a year. Nothing had changed much, same furniture, same shelves. But she noticed the framed photo on the side table. The one from their second anniversary, the one he had once forgotten in a drawer. You kept it, she said, picking it up gently. He smiled. You never stopped mattering. She sat on the couch and looked around. It feels familiar. But not the same. That's okay, he said. We're not the same either. Later that evening, she found his journal. He didn't hide it. She flipped through the pages slowly, absorbing his entries. Today, I thought about her voice and realized I miss her silence more. Because even when she said nothing, she was still speaking. I just never learned how to listen to that language. I used to think I was the strong one. Now I realize she carried both of us. For too long. Healing isn't begging her to come back. It's becoming the man she deserved when she was still mine. She closed the book and sat in silence for a while. You've changed, she finally said. Not for me. For yourself. That's what I needed to do, he said. Otherwise, I'd just repeat the same mistakes. With you or anyone. That night, they sat side by side on the couch, legs barely touching. He didn't reach for her. She didn't lean in. But the space between them felt safe now, not filled with tension or hesitation, but possibility. They began to make new memories. A weekend trip to a quiet town, where they laughed over burnt toast and got lost in antique shops. Sunday mornings reading in silence. Evenings walking without purpose, just to be in each other's presence. Once, he found her asleep on his shoulder, breathing softly, her guard down. He didn't move for over an hour, afraid to break that peace. He knew they weren't back together. Not yet. Maybe not ever in the way people expected. But they were building something. Something without pride. Without pretending. Without pressure. One night, she asked, "Do you still think about her?" He looked at her, confused. "Who?" "Your ex." He paused. Then said, "Not in the way I used to. I don't miss her. I miss who I thought I was with her. But I was wrong. She never really knew me. You did." She nodded, satisfied with the honesty. "I used to compare myself to her." "You never needed to," he said gently. "I was the one who couldn't let go of the past. That wasn't your fault." She leaned her head on his shoulder then. A small gesture. But it meant everything. This love was not a redo of what they once had. It wasn't dramatic, or intense, or swept up in passion. It was thoughtful. Present. It was checking in, even when nothing seemed wrong. It was saying "I'm listening" instead of "you're overreacting." It was her smiling for real, not just out of politeness. It was him apologizing without being asked. It was laughter that didn't need fixing after. Tears that didn't scare them anymore. It was a new kind of love. The kind that doesn't burn you alive. The kind that warms you gently. It had been 6 months since that afternoon in the bookstore. 6 long, quiet, steady months. Not perfect, not magical, but honest. They'd built something, not from broken pieces of their past, but from entirely new bricks. Bricks of clarity, boundaries, trust, and something softer than forgiveness, acceptance. He still remembered the day she left. The sharp slam of the door. The echo of her voice saying she was done trying to convince someone to love her right. Now, everything sounded quieter. No doors slamming. No raised voices. No storm. Just life, flowing as it should. They saw each other often now. Most weekends. Some weekdays. No schedule, no pressure. They were learning what space meant when it wasn't just distance, but respect. And even when they weren't together, he no longer feared she'd disappear again. He'd learned something important. Real love doesn't fear pauses. It breathes through them. On a rainy Thursday, she called. Nothing dramatic in her voice, just a simple, "Are you home?" "Yeah," he replied. "Why?" "I'm coming over," she said. "I have something to say." His stomach twisted. Not with fear this time, but with a strange kind of excitement wrapped in nerves. He cleaned the apartment like a man possessed, not out of panic, but pride. He wanted her to feel peace when she walked in. Like she could exhale here. The doorbell rang. He opened it and found her standing there, hair wet from the rain, holding a small overnight bag. "Hi," she said. "Hi. I walked through the rain because I didn't want to think too much. I just wanted to come." He stepped aside, letting her in. She looked around. Same place. Same smell. But it felt different. It wasn't the space she had walked away from, it was something she had slowly returned to. She placed the bag down. "I don't want to go back to the way we were. Ever." "Neither do I," he said quietly. She walked to the window. Rain streaked the glass like tears from the sky. "I thought I needed to stay away to protect myself," she said. "But now I realize, what I needed was to become someone who could return on my own terms." He waited. He knew she wasn't finished. "I'm not here to play house. I'm not here to forget everything that happened. I'm here, because I want to choose this. Fully." Without guilt. Without fear. Then she turned around. And if you'll have me, she whispered, I want to come home. He didn't say a word. Just walked over, wrapped his arms around her, and held her like he was holding the whole world. Not because she was his world, but because she chose to be a part of his again. They stood like that for a long time. Her breathing slowing against his chest. His heartbeat syncing with hers. The apartment suddenly didn't feel quiet anymore. It felt filled with presence. She pulled back and smiled. I missed this, she said. Not the old us. This. Who we've become. I miss this too, he said. You feel familiar in a brand new way. They ordered food, sat on the couch, and talked about everything and nothing. She told him about a book that made her cry. He told her about a dream he had where she was dancing barefoot in their kitchen again. Then, before bed, she looked around and said something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. You know when I knew I was ready? When I stopped waiting for an apology and started remembering the love that came after the apology. He blinked. Does that mean you forgive me? She shook her head. It means I see you. Clearly. And I still choose you. She didn't move back in that night. Or even the next week. They didn't rush anything. There were still things to learn, still patterns to break, still wounds to respect. But something shifted that evening. She'd come home. Not to a place. To a person. To herself, within his arms. And this time, he wouldn't hold her like something to possess. He would hold her like something to honor. To protect. Not from the world, but from the version of him that once forgot how to love her right. Epilogue. A year later, she moved back in. Not because they needed to prove anything, not because time had healed all, but because healing had made room for peace. And peace, for joy. They didn't post about it. They didn't throw a party. But on a quiet morning, she placed a new mug beside his on the shelf. Her toothbrush next to his. Her books on the table. Her voice humming while folding laundry. And one morning, she sat across from him at breakfast, looked around, and said with a full, quiet smile, "This is home." And this time, he didn't take it for granted. He just reached for her hand, and whispered back, "Welcome."